the misconduct sometimes that is within the law practice, or of saying that, women have to be really careful, extra careful that, you're not getting that job because somebody's interested in you in a sense of intimacy. So he had to like also tell me that, what, you should be where you are because you worked hard to get there.
Welcome to another episode of Sisters in Conversation. I'm your host, Tebello. I'm an attorney by profession and the founder of a platform called Sister in Law, which is a platform dedicated to empowering women through legal education. On today's episode, I'm joined by Dr. Tebello Matsela. Welcome to the show, Doctor. I need to say Dr. Tebello because that's probably the only time I'll have the title Doctor in front of my own very name too.
Okay.
So I'm just going to piggyback on you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here.
It is my absolute pleasure having you here. Thank you so much for giving your time to this show. And I'm sure we have so much to learn from you. I'm so excited to get into our conversation. But as I do with all my guests, please can you take us to the beginning of who Tebello is, away from the titles of doctor? Where did you grow up? Where were you born and raised? How many siblings do you have? What's your favorite childhood memory that you can share with us?
Sure.
Let's start at the very beginning.
Yeah. So even before I begin to tell you and your audience who I am, I normally love to start by saying who I am is not what I do. Because sometimes we associate what we do with who we are. Firstly, I am a child of God and I am born and bred in Lesotho. So Mosotho through and through. And I grew up in a small town or small village, if I have to say it, called Moreja. It's in the district of Maseru. And I was raised by a single mother. My mother was divorced. I think as long as I remember, like my mother was the only one or the only parent that existed in my life. And it was only the two of us, not the two of us like siblings. I have a younger sibling. So like I grew up in an environment where it wasn't nuclear in a sense of saying a mother, father, children inside. Then I had a mother who was, I think, everything.
Yeah.
And she took us to school. I went to primary school. And I have to state right now that even in primary, I had this passion of reading books. So reading books would be a way to escape some form of life or like things that I would experience or my reality of being there with a single mother who sometimes struggles to raise us. But I think being consumed in books would drive me into another land.
Yeah.
Maybe also ignite a hope inside of me and saying that one day I will write a book or I will see myself in another world. So basically that's it. And then when I was 13, unfortunately, I lost my mother. And then my sister was around 13 as well because we're just a year apart. And then after that, we got raised in my mom's sister's family. In Sesotho, we call them Nkgono, or in another language, it could be Mamkulu. So that was my that was my mom's sister who raised us. So growing up, I did high school and then still in Lesotho. And then I did, after high school, I went to university, the National University of Lesotho, and that's where my law career began. So I think you will, in the later stages as we are conversing, hear how my passion also for law began within all of this, shenanigans.
I was actually going to ask, so did you decide in high school that you wanted to study law? How did you know that this is the route that you wanted to pursue? Did you maybe see a program? Did you see any injustice happen, maybe where you were staying? What actually really ignited that passion for you to say, this is what I'm going to study?
Okay, so when my mother passed on, there was a lot of commotion between the families, the uncles. You know, there was so much injustices in a sense of like we would see, you know, if I have to put it, you know, lack of a better word, like angry or like greedy uncles going after my inheritance and my sister's inheritance. So I think that moment when I was running to the master of the High Court, you know, with everything, like, you know, how our assets had to be protected, I would like just sit there. I remember at the corridor and say, well, I never want this to happen to anyone. I want to protect maybe the children, maybe the women that are, you know, that are not protected in a sense of being married or like anyone speaking for them, right? Then I think I went through high school. So I didn't know that, you know, people had to study law to be lawyers. But until I read a book in high school called To Kill a Mockingbird. So I don't know if you know about that book. And so it was like this lawyer, like he was really like, you know, brutal in a sense of, in a good way, like when he defends his clients, because he was defending this guy who grew up after slavery. And then he was, you know, at that time, Black people were not listened to or whatever. So Atticus Finch, I still even remember their name. Yes. And, you know, I would read this, like, you know, this book. And I remember just saying, this is what I want to do. I just want to speak for the people that cannot speak for themselves. I just want to speak for the voiceless. I just want to speak for people that are marginalized. This is what I want to do. So when I went to varsity, we were given 3 options to actually apply. And I remember saying, well, I don't know if I don't do law, what else can I do? Right? So like my first option was law. My second option was law as well. So I was just like, just in case they missed.
Were there different options? Like you could do BCom law and straight LLB? And
no, it was straight LLB. In Lesotho, we didn't have, at that time, we didn't have, I think it was for people who did law like in the 80s or whatever. But during my time, we didn't have we don't have BCom law. So it's not like South Africa where I know that, you know, the system is very different in a sense of like you BCom law or whatever, then you can try to figure it out. But for us, it was straight into LLB.
Okay.
So I knew that I just wanted to do that. So my first option was, you know, law. My second option was law. Then, well, I had to behave when I got to my third option because I was like, okay, then humanities. I didn't even know what humanities consisted of.
You were just like, put something.
Yeah, let me just put something. So like, yeah, my passion for law started personally through my personal story, and then like reading that book, To Kill a Mockingbird. Then I said, oh,
this is it.
This is it. Yeah.
And what was your varsity life like? What was your experience like? Were you those kids that just really put their head down, or did you get taken by excitement that first year where you're like, yes, no rules, or, you know? Or
I know that some of the people that will also be watching this, I'm sure they're like, don't lie. So, I can't lie. I was very excited about varsity. And remember that as a young girl who lost, you know, both parents, in a sense of saying that, well, I was excited to meet new people outside of like, you know, whatever my story. So I was very excited, even though that excitement was sometimes driven in the wrong directions of like maybe groovunyana, and, you know, you get distracted by a lot of things. But one thing that I knew is that, you know, because nobody's coming to save me, I needed to work hard. So even though I would go to groove, you best believe that I had to go to the library and read and study and do all of that, to a point where I remember this one guy approaching me. I thought he wanted to be my friend. Then he later told me on, when we were friends, that, well, I thought I wanted you to be my girlfriend just to distract you because you are so focused in your studies. We were actually
the danger.
The danger,
man.
Guys. Then we were like, you know, because he was like, you are so focused in your studies. And you were so good because I remember we were doing an elective together. It was called export law. So then he was like, "You're so good in this." And, I just didn't want somebody to be above me. And I think we can call it a little bit sexist because he was just like, no, I don't want, a girl being above me in that sense. And I was like, oh, I didn't know.
You didn't know that men still thought like that.
Yes,
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
I was just like, bro.
And now
like,
you're a doctor, so I hope he's watching. Yo, his distraction
No,
didn't work.
Yes, it did not work at all. Praise God to that. So basically that was it. But I was an excited person. Everything that I did it with passion. I did it with love. I knew that I am going to make it, despite things that were thrown around law students like, yeah, you're not gonna make it. This is a hard thing. They enter 100 people, but then people who graduate are like 30, and every time I think I would call myself a toxic, optimistic person.
Yeah.
Because I would say, well, if
I'm gonna be the 30.
Yeah, I'm gonna be the 30.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be
That is
in
me. A lot of the time I'm like, oh great, I'll just be that 1%.
Yes.
It's fine. Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
I
so
love
I
that.
was that person.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then you graduate, and after graduating, what's the next step? What happens? Do you guys do articles, pupillage? You are an advocate of the High Courts of Lesotho. How do you get there after your studies?
Yeah. So after graduating, we had to serve like maybe in a law firm. So I found myself in a very small law firm where it was only me and my boss. So during that time, during the service, they track your like just tracking your record as to like how you're performing.
They train you.
Yeah, train you. And then during that time, like your boss will ask you, do you want to be admitted? Do you feel like you're ready to be admitted as an advocate? And for me, we being in practice, which I'll come to later, it's very different from what you see on the series or like, Sue's, or you're going to be this, boss babe that's going and
Jessica
making money.
Pearson.
Exactly.
So
it's very different. But then I felt ready, even though I was questioning where I was, because there were a lot of things that, my eyes were open to, because now you're out of varsity. Now you are in the real world. You are working. You are seeing the realness of like court cases being delayed, the backlog, people getting disappointed by the system. You are involved in all of that, and then you're questioning yourself again. Is this really what I'm called to do? So I got admitted. I did get admitted because I wanted the title of being an advocate. But at the time, I don't think that I was ready to step into that role fully, because what I was seeing was that I don't think I wanted to see the disappointment especially in the people's faces. Real people, because these are people. And, when you are, at the time, I didn't understand the call in itself, because I remember back in varsity, like there was a constitutional teacher that would say to us, law is a calling, and for many of us, we would be like, well, we just want to do the money. We just want to get the
we
bag.
Here for the money. And how's that going?
Yeah, I know, right? But I think when you get into practice, you need to rethink those words again. Law is a calling. Am I called to this? Am I
called to the bar? Literally.
Exactly. Am I the one who is, who has to like comfort people if the outcome is not what they expected,
and see justice being actually done, practiced, and delivered and served. Yeah. So you said your boss asked you if you're ready to be admitted. With us, there's like you do pupillage for a year, or you do your articles for 2 years.
No,
if you're
in
gonna
Lesotho it's not. I think right now the system is different, but during our times, it wasn't. There wasn't a set time put, as in like, you have to do 2 years. I know that's South Africa.
So you just can wake up and say, I'm ready.
Yeah, I was like I'm ready
today. What? That is insane.
Yeah, it's not like you have to do a 2-year period.
But I suppose the title there's obviously there comes a lot of responsibility once you say I'm ready. So you sort of have to be sure about it. You can't just say I just wanna get the title, and then you're not ready, and then you disappoint people, and then you can't stand up on your own and actually do what you're meant to do. So that's I was never gonna be ready then. If that was the case, I was gonna nope.
I mean, what did you know if you're from varsity and you're seeing people in their robes and you're wearing black and white? And I mean, that was the thing. And there was a point where I hated black and white, like later on, because I was like, I cannot believe I wanted to wear black and white every day, but it goes back to the thing of like evaluating, are you really called to this? So then my journey, I think, began there where I had to do a deeper thinking. Also, I have to state that during the time of practice, I really have to honor, the man that took me in as a young lawyer and groomed me. I actually went back to him before I graduated from my doctorate thesis just to say thank you.
Sure.
And I went back. His law firm is now bigger. He was like, "Yeah, if you
tell us a little bit about him."
Yeah.
When you say you want to thank him, what did he do that was so affirming and empowering and affirming?
Yeah. So when I got there, we were very young, and I just remember him saying, you just need to be careful, right? Especially of the older male lawyers, right? And then at the time, I think he was very slow with me. Maybe I was slow to get what he was saying.
Yeah.
Then he was just like, you know what? I see people come in, but I always see them change and become very different people because of the things that they have, allowed to be in their lives without the right time. And also, he also spoke about things like the misconduct sometimes that is within the law practice of saying that, women have to be really careful, extra careful that, you're not getting that job because somebody's interested in you in a sense of intimacy. So he had to also tell me that, you know what, you should be where you are because you worked hard to get there. And
guard your integrity, dignity,
exactly.
Esteem. Yeah.
He was really protective. And he even went to the extent of saying, skajola mo. Now I would say don't date any
prominent
attorneys. Exactly. Just be careful. And the other thing that I really wanted to say is that before we even went to court, we would pray. He was just a prayer warrior, and we would just be praying, and he would be like, okay, now we're ready to serve and go out. That. So why I went back to him is that, that integrity, that,
grounding.
Grounding was very important. And I think most people don't get it.
Sure.
Because, they're just thrown into whatever, and they're vultures.
Into the Wild West. Because it's the Wild West out here by law.
Yeah. So it's and then they don't know who they are. Then later on, it's like, oh, I compromised there. I did this. I wish I could have done it differently. But even though, if you get something right, your integrity preserved, you know that you worked hard for it, even if it takes longer, you are proud of yourself when you get it, or when you are achieving something because you're like, well, I worked hard to get it. Yeah. So, but unfortunately as well, even though he really tried to groom me and shape me into this advocate going for litigation and all of that, I still felt like I don't want to do it. And because I also felt like my voice was being shrinked in a sense of saying that I had my boss, but I also had other lawyers who would discourage and say, well, women can't do this, or women, when they see you doing divorce, cases, then they're like, yeah, that's where you should be. You're not empowered to do, if you want to do a murder case or whatever, you're not empowered to do that because they've already
boxed you
exactly
in divorce and family law.
Yeah,
I get that.
And whatever, man. You know, if you're still insecure, because when you are young, you are very much insecure,
And you don't know yourself.
you don't know yourself, you don't know what you're doing. Like I said, you are questioning, should I be even here? So I think it didn't last long, because I was just like, well, I will go somewhere where I have to hide. I just have to use my brain, but not my mouth. And I went into corporate. Like, I went to a company, I worked for a company where I was a legal advisor. And I felt like, oh, maybe here, but still.
Is that where you were doing environmental and mining law?
Yes, where I was actually doing the occupational health and safety. I was in the occupational health and safety department. And it was a company owned by my brother. But also he was like, and this is my cousin brother, and he was like, I don't feel like you belong here. And I was like, but what do you mean? Like, I don't belong here. It's like, no, there's more in you. And I think that's when he was like, why don't you consider going back to school? And I was like, so there's that option? I didn't know that there was an option to go and pursue my master's. Then he was like, yeah, I think you can just try and look into that. Then that's when I came to South Africa, my journey of like staying in South Africa, studying in South Africa, because that's where I did my master's in environmental governance law, and with a specialization of mining law, because I was from Lesotho. So Lesotho has a lot of diamonds. And then I tried to explore that as well. But I have to also state that even during this time, I was still not yet sure what is my niche, what is the thing, you know. And I remember also during this time, I would write in my article and say, God, I feel like my voice is taken away. I feel like, you know, I still need to use this voice, but I don't know how to do it. Then after my master's degree, I took a break where I went into full-time ministry. And during the full-time ministry, I was doing community development, and then I was doing also campus, like where we're mentoring students, like, you know, just reading the word of God, and like just, you know, because there's a lot of things on campus, so you're just mentoring students. But what captured my heart was the community development, where for the very first time I went into the locations, and then we were serving women who also like were not married, or like sometimes, you know, they are on the other side of the system, where the system is not working, where you're seeing that, oh my goodness, these women are in customary marriages and they haven't inherited anything. They're now left home. They're single mothers. And then we also developed an after school program where we would help with the children as well. And I think for the very first time, like, there was something that was ignited in me, and I said, God, I think I found my voice. And I think I know what I want to do for the rest of my life or in my law career.
That.
And that is to speak for women, to be the voice of women. And like, it just ignited, and I said, oh, I know that I want to go back to school now. I know how to contribute, but now, most importantly, I want to use my voice. And that's when I opened a podcast, and it's called Simply She Voiced. And like, that's when I started, like, you know, engaging women's issues through faith, culture, and law. And like, that's where it is. Yeah. So that's, I think I answered a lot of, yeah.
I love it, because I was going to say, you've got quite an interesting mixed masala of law. You know, you started off when you were doing you know, when you were still in practice, when you're an advocate, you were doing land rights, I think it was, and some divorce as well. Then you moved on to environmental law and mining law. Then I saw now you're doing like African customary law. And I find it so interesting, and I'm so glad that you found your voice in this space, because it is my favorite space to operate in. Right? Our stories are similar in the fact that you use your personal story to be the voice of women. With me, it was my mom going through a divorce, and I grew up knowing that I don't want other women going through what my mom went through after her divorce. I want women to be empowered. And later on, it became apparent when my grandfather was like, if you want to understand about divorce, you need to study law. And that, I carried his voice with me, and that's what, you know, ultimately led my decision to study law. And even though I didn't know I was going to start something like sister-in-law, where I'm educating women on various aspects of the law, I then, you know, got to find that calling. And so I really got goosebumps when you're like, and finally I found what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, because I get it. I get it. And I I love the space you're operating in.
Sure.
So
Thank
that
you so much.
the community work that you were doing then led you to pursuing a doctorate.
Yeah, it did. So it was a really touching. So I don't know if people have been to Lesotho. You said you didn't grow up in Lesotho.
But
So
I've got family there, so I'm there very often.
So the story is quite different because in Lesotho we don't have we don't have locations. You have villages,
Mitzi.
So yeah, meeting. So the concept of a location was very different to me. Like it was like, what is happening, and like it was a totally new world like open to me as well, because I was just like, how are these women surviving in this, shacks as well with 8 children? I remember one story of a woman who stayed with 8 children, and she was also positive at the time, and I think my heart just broke because I was like, God, how
do you live like this?
How do you live like that? And I normally say that during that time when I'm talking about serving in the locations, I said, this time, nobody had to come and walk in my office. I had to take the office to the people. And sometimes that's what we need with lawyers. We need people, and I think I really totally respect your platform because you break it down for layman to understand the law. Why? Like, don't get in community of property.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll talk about that.
The danger.
But for somebody who did not study law or does not understand the laws, when you go to them, because it is you reaching out to them and saying, let me make it understand, like let me make it understandable for you so that you make a wise decision.
Sure.
So that is like, also that's how it broke my heart. I was like, for the first time, that's how I'm feeling right now. I'm feeling like I'm taking the office. I'm just there serving, but then at the same time, something is reigniting inside of me. Like, I'm feeling anger, and as a Christian, I would say a righteous anger of saying why isn't the justice, or why isn't there justice for these people? Why isn't there even environmental, laws that are operating in this, poor sanitation or whatever? You become angry for the right reasons. And I think even within the law profession, that's how we need to operate. Remember, I said my law lecturer said law is a calling. And at that time, I understood I'm called. I'm called to something. I'm called to something bigger. I'm called to a people. And it's not everyone. I'm not called to men. I don't be like, I can advise like a group of men about their rights, but I'm called to women.
Sure.
And I needed to understand that. And I think that's the beauty of it all, because that's where the customary aspect of it came in. And I say, this is Black women who are ruled by customary marriages, also still operating within the culture. But then how do we develop and reform the laws to suit them and to work for them? So that's when it started. The other thing that really sealed the love and passion for customary law as well was during lockdown, because I found that women in South Africa and in Lesotho experienced a double jeopardy, not only COVID-19, but gender-based violence.
Sure.
And then I was like, I feel like we are dealing with the branches. There are those things of like cutting the branches instead of, going to the root of the matter. Like, why is this happening? Why would somebody get married to you and then start abusing you? Then I started, also seeking the Lord in that and saying, God, I don't understand, but make me understand. Then I think the word that was revealed to me was culture, because sometimes unhealthy culture that still sees women as secondary class citizens to the culture that they belong to, or minors or children, then men always feel like they are prone to dominate, not lead, because leadership, it means that, I understand your grievances or like what you need. But dominance is you don't have a voice, you don't have anything. So then I started interrogating the healthy cultural practices within South Africa and Lesotho. And I found that, it is some of the things that, women are experiencing, especially in these two countries. It's the unhealthy cultural practices where they are seen as minorities. Yeah. So that's it.
Yo. I'm like, I don't even know what to ask next because you've answered all my questions.
Okay, I'm
I
sorry.
love that. I absolutely love that. So now you are a legal researcher
Yes.
at the University of Pretoria.
Pretoria,
I
yeah.
take it now you're gonna settle in South Africa.
Yes.
Okay, that's
for now, as
for
the
now.
Lord wills.
That's
For
great.
now.
So, just can you please share with us what does a legal researcher do and how did you find yourself in that space?
Okay, yeah. So, what I wanted to say, because you said mixed masala,
Yes.
there was something that popped in my mind, because every time that I advise an upcoming lawyer, like a women lawyer or somebody who is new in the field of saying, I'm not sure what I want to do. I want to go in practice. I want to do legal academia. And for me, I normally say that, well, don't box yourself.
Yeah.
Try everything.
Yeah,
And,
right?
yeah.
Life is long, guys.
Life
is long. Yeah.
Try everything. Like, just
You will
be
find your
everywhere.
niche eventually.
Ma'am, that's true. Like, exactly what you're saying. I normally say, like, try, go to practice. Like, go and do your articles. Go, and if you don't like it, okay, cool. Maybe try and study something that will take you to the banking, whatever.
Whatever.
Whatever that you want to do, because law is not one way, doing one way thing. And then you're like, oh, I've finally found whatever that I want to do. So try it all. Like, even research, I never thought that I'm a researcher at heart. I was just like, this thing of studying, actually, I don't like it. Until yes, customary law found me, and then I was really interested in researching, in being curious. I think one of the traits of being a researcher is to be curious. You have to be curious, and also you have to be a problem solver. You have to believe that you can bring an aspect of yourself that solves something. So, like, the other part of it is that I didn't believe that I was a researcher, because I never really thought that I'm creative in my thinking or critical. I can, critically analyze things or argue them and say, well, that is not it. I just thought that I'm a follower. Like, whatever that you say, I'll go. But then until I found myself in research and say, well, I've found that there is a lot of traits that you can develop in this. And that is, number one, as I said, curiosity. You have to be curious. Why is this? Then you can say, is there a law for it? How can we solve it? How can I bring an aspect of myself into this and, resolve it? So that is basically it, where you're saying that, a legal researcher have to be curious. And you have to also believe that whatever that you bring to the table, it's valid, and it can be, it can be proposed. And right now, what I'm looking forward to is being cited in the courts of law when Tebello Muswani is doing cases.
I receive.
Yes.
I receive.
So it's also that, because I feel like when you're also in the legal research department, there is a lot that you can find insecurities. You can be insecure because you will find people who will tell you, well, why do you think about it like that? Like, who thinks about such things? And I think one of the common questions that I get as a young person is, why customary law? Why not civil law? Why not? I mean, the world is going in a
legal
civil
tech and all of that.
Yeah, legal tech.
Commercial.
Why would you go that route? And then
Well, someone has to preserve it.
I mean, come on. And like, we can't leave them behind. We are at the cities, but come on, guys. We come from somewhere. We're coming from those traditional backgrounds. We are coming from, I have to say that, okay, the way that I follow you, I also checked you out that this past weekend you were doing some exercises at where you
in Soshanguve.
in Soshanguve,
Yes.
and I was just like, yeah, I mean, why not? Because I mean, we live in sometimes I would say that it's a lying sense, like, you know,
bubble, like it's a little bit fairy tale, like you live in a
Yes,
fairy tale sometimes. Yeah.
right, where like we are not grounded, like, you know, it's like, oh, it's me, myself, and I. And then like we never think about the community, we never think
Sure.
about the people who also contributed for us to get here. Because if we are thinking about the history of apartheid and colonialism, then we are thinking about the people that fought for us to be here, for me and you to be sitting here in a nice crafted chair. And you know, like there are we have our ancestors who yearned for this lifestyle that we are living. But now why are we forgetting about those that are still there?
Yeah.
Because there
Yeah.
are those that are still there. And right now I would say, particularly in South Africa, you are seeing young people as well saying, well, I'm an African. I want an African wedding. I want a customary wedding. Somebody needs to be speaking, like, you know, maybe shedding a light in terms of the laws. How protected are you if you're going that route? Because people still want to go back and say, hey, I want to still see that I'm a Tsonga, I'm a, you know, Zulu,
Motswana,
like
whatever.
Motswana, like, you know, whatever that it is, we cannot do away with who we are. So even if young people like myself are going back and saying, hey guys, can we preserve this? Can we restore it? Can we reform it for contemporary people? And like, you know, protect people who are still operating under the system. So yeah, basically that's it, I think.
Ew, okay.
Yeah.
So where does your work go? Like, is it in a journal? Are you publishing all your findings in a journal? Yeah. Where is it going?
Yeah. So for legal researchers are very important, because even at the high courts, you will find that the judges are looking for legal researchers. So your work goes into the journals. We publish through journaling, like, you know, through journals. And those journals are what the lawyers, basically what I can say is like material. You know, it's what the lawyers go and quote in the courts of law and say, okay, as Tebello, an expert in customary law, defines customary law, this is what we are presenting before the court. So we are like presenting that as well. And I would say also for legal education at the universities, because lawyers begin at the universities. So they don't begin in practice.
Yes.
They are definitely at the universities, where we are teaching or imparting into the young minds how to critically think about where they are going, or also the laws, you know. So we are, I would say that, you know, we are the starting point of like young lawyers. And I think for me, I love imparting. That's why also, you know, being a podcaster, or like podcasting, or like speaking to a group of people, or standing in front of students and imparting some form of knowledge, I always feel like, you know, I have done you know, it's part of also the call of saying that, oh wow, what I have, I can impart to somebody. So my work goes into that most of the time. It's like, okay, we journal, like we have to publish, and books as well. We have to write books. I'm not there yet, but hoping that one day, yes, I will write a customary law book.
Hey, I'll be the first one to buy it. I promise you.
Yes. So basically that's what we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you have any lecturing stints? Are you going to go into lecturing, or for now it's just purely legal research?
No, lecturing is part of it, because like I said, you know, you have to write and also impart. You know, you can't just be writing. I know that there are people that like just says, oh yeah, I just want to write, and you know, and not involve myself in that. But it is the package of legal academia, or being a legal researcher, is that you have to lecture. You have to put yourself in that, you know, standpoint of saying that there's a point where I have to impart this knowledge onto like the students. And yeah, so that's basically it. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to take us back a little bit to your journey to your PhD,
Okay.
right? Maybe if there's someone who's listening and they're like, how do you even apply it's a PhD? Like, where do I start? Do I have to have done my master's, or is there a way that I can do such a good job during master's that it gets upgraded to a doctorate,
There are, yeah. There are people that do their masters and then the universities realize that, whoa, this was a good
Okay.
work, and then they upgrade it. I mean, we see them in the newspaper. It's not everyone.
Yeah, for sure.
I have to say,
yeah.
it's the exception to the general rule. But for most people, you will have to apply after your master's degree, right? And I have to say that for people who really want to do it, take time and think about it. Because I could have done a PhD after my master's, but I didn't want to. Because I was just like, I want to write about something that is close to my heart.
Yeah.
And so that you finish on record time.
So that you're invested in it, ne?
Yes,
like you
so that
really
you
just want
invest.
to plug and plant yourself into the process.
And if I have to say, like, praise God for this is my journey. I finished my doctorate in 2 years. So it's something that, it's big, it's huge, because like, people say, oh, how did you do it? Because it takes people 5 years or 4 years or maximum 3 if, you have. And one thing that I normally say is that you have to be passionate about what you are writing about. Even though it is hard, it is, oh my goodness, I'm not going to sell like that you're going to just get a PhD.
Red gown.
Yeah, I'm not just going to sell that you get a red gown for free. You are going to
Clearly
have
that red symbolizes you must bleed through it. Like,
ma'am, that's it. Yes.
danger. That's where the danger is.
Yes,
Yeah, no.
so you have to be passionate about a topic. If it's divorce, like, go for it, think about it, and think about, the plan, because I feel like many people don't plan. They just go into something because, well, like I started this when we started recording, I said many people attach what they do with who they are, right? So you chase a title because you want to be applauded, you want to be seen, you want to be, or, you want when people see Tebello Motshwane is like, yeah, an attorney of what, and then that forms part of your identity. But the greatest thing about being a lawyer is that you don't have to attach your identity to it. It does not have to form part of your identity. So when you go into a PhD, it's the same. Don't go for the title. Go because you're saying, oh my word, I want to explore this topic. And, my supervisor would say, write in a way that you can take your thesis to your primary school teacher and say, oh, I've written this, can you read it? And they can read it without, big words or you bombarding them with whatever that it is, right? So you go there to research that topic and say, I do not only want this work to stay on the shelf, but I want to, add something to
for the people,
for the courts as well, because that's also our work. Our work is how can we develop the justice system? How can we help the judges to form like, a law or like think about the precedents that they do? Like, you have to be part of something bigger.
Sure.
So that's why I'm saying that when you are thinking about doing your PhD, think about, things that you're passionate. Big, and also the bigger picture of like, why am I doing this? Is it just so that somebody can call me doctor? Or is it because I really want to add something to the jurisprudence of South Africa or Lesotho or wherever where you are? So it's very important to know who you are, because also your identity will be challenged when you get there. It's not nice to get those remarks of saying, we think this is really stupid.
Yeah.
We think,
Sure.
it's not nice. It can drive you to depression. It can drive you to like severe self, insecurities about like, can I really do this? Because it's different people critiquing your work. And so, but if you know who you are, I normally separated that from like my work and say, well, he's not critiquing me. He's critiquing the work that, like for my supervisor, he's critiquing the work that I'm doing. And he's doing it to develop me, to develop the writer in me. So then I become a better person. Then it also detaches you to to think that people are always after you, or like, and I think sometimes we don't teach women enough for that, because, we are always taught you're emotional beings. You feel, yes, it's okay. But then, no, we have to also like teach them how to be tough people, if I have to say it. We have to teach women how to become tougher in the fields that you are in, and saying, you know what, when somebody says something, you can also say, no, but that's not me. You can bring your critique, as long as it doesn't break me down, right? And also, even when it comes, you're like, well, it's not going to take away who I am. So I think that's where it's very important to separate, who you are from what you do. So
Sure.
when you go for a PhD, like really like sit down and evaluate what you're passionate about. Am I passionate about it? Is it going to add something? And also, it does not have to form part of my identity. Sometimes when people call me doctor, I'm like, me, I'm the Kimango.
You're like, yo, that's so serious. Yeah, sometimes like when someone is reading out your bio, are you like, yo, that's a little bit serious. Who are you guys talking about?
Exactly. I'm like, I'm still very young, thank you.
I'm just a baby.
I'm just a baby. Like, what are you talking about? So it's very important.
So tell me, we are human, and sometimes passion on its own is not enough. So on those days where you felt like, yo, I can't, what am I doing? I can't. What kept you going to just go to the library, do the motions of the research towards your thesis? Like, what kept you going on those days where you were just like, I can't?
That's a good question. So for me, my faith kept me going. My faith in Jesus, because I am passionate about Jesus. I'm passionate about also like, people knowing of him, because sometimes, we've been given this misconceptions of what Christianity is. Maybe it's a white man's religion. Oh, leave people to do whatever. But then I always find that, the devil is deceptive in a way that if you do not know who you are, then I can easily trick you, right? So it's the same when you are experiencing trials or things that, challenge you and say, I can't go further, God. And then, the Lord would have to tell you, like, remember why we started.
Sure.
Remember the words that I gave to you. Remember, that was my anchor. That, because I have to also mention that during my PhD, I got really sick. Because I was working so hard, like my body couldn't take it.
Burn out.
Yeah, burned out, low iron, whatever that you can think about, like, women experiencing things. And then, like, I remember I was in hospital this one time, and I was like, God, I don't think we're going to do this. I don't think that we are. And then the Lord just reminded me of a scripture that, remember that I am with you. So that in itself, it's like, if I'm going to get the glory out of this, then you don't have to do anything.
Sure.
I will lead you. I will take you through the fire. Sometimes we are in the fire and we feel like the fire is burning. God, can you just take me out of this? Or sometimes you are in the water and you feel like the water is drowning you. But then the Lord still reminds you there and say, I am with you there. I am with you and I will walk you through. And that is one of the things that I also want to tell younger people, because sometimes, in the world of social media, we want things as quick as possible. I see you, sister, in conversations, or sister-in-law. I'm like, I want that, And I don't even know what you went through to get what you went, So there is this quick 2
instant
minute
gratification.
Yes, instant gratification that we see younger people falling prey to. And if you can also study that one of the causes of depression and suicides amongst young people is the anxiety of being on social media. And nobody wants to talk about that. But also, nobody wants to tell younger people and say, hey, it's okay to stay where you are and endure a little bit longer. It's okay
to have nothing, guys.
Yes, exactly. It's okay to not have anything.
Yeah.
And it's okay to go through it. You have to go through
Sometimes
it.
you must go through it. Yeah. How?
O tlametse hore o ye kgohlong, like as a Mosotho. Yeah.
You must go through it.
You know, I had this one lady that was our helper at home, and she normally said, you know, ka Sesotho, and said, "Kgohlong ha o dulwe." Because the Bible says that when I go through the valley of the shadow, not when I stay.
Yeah.
You don't stay there.
Sure.
So nobody tells people that you're not going to stay there long. You know, when I was an orphan, like when I was 15, I thought that was my situation. I thought that was my story.
Your life.
I thought that was my life. But looking back now, I'm like,
You went through it.
I went through it.
And you didn't die.
And I didn't die.
You honestly did not die.
I did not die.
I love that. I love that. I really love that. Sure.
Yeah.
What else did I want to speak about? There's a lot to ask you. But
I still remember the questions from your email.
no, but those were we're not going to cover all of them.
Okay.
Definitely not. Definitely not. Okay, in the little time that we have left, let's talk about if there was anything that you'd change about the legal profession as a whole. What would it be?
That's a lot, hey? Because, like I said, like we have to grieve for the people that do not get justice at the right time. We have to, our hearts have to break for the injustices that we see around.
Yeah.
You know, when you see somebody sitting on the street, you know, they have a story. And I think sometimes ke Gauteng mo, you know, and people are normally like, bona, you do yourself, like you vent for yourself, because if you're nice to a person, mutu utla maga and everything, you know. Unfortunately, we live in that state in South Africa, but I want to challenge people as well to say that when you see somebody, whether on the street, like whether on whatever, you know, even as a lawyer, you have to think about yourself. You have to think about them and say they have a story. Sure. I wonder what their story is. And for us who are in the justice system,
So be a little bit compassionate.
Be a little bit compassionate, and also let things break you. Like, you know, let you go and think about things and say, I saw that lady carrying that child on their back. God, you robotong. Like, God, I wonder, like, what can we change within the legal system that can help that? You're not going to change the world. I don't think I'm a fan of like, go out and change the world, because like, what are you talking about? I can't go out and change the world.
There's a lot.
Exactly.
There's a lot.
But I can go out and change one life at a time.
Sure.
I can go out and change, you know, my community. You are married. That's your first ministry. Like, you know, I can go out and impart in my child and say, be a better person.
Sure.
Like, you know, so what I would change, like going to your question within the legal system and saying, what would I change? I would change maybe the hearts of many lawyers to be more compassionate.
Yeah.
And not to see people as money. You are going to get the money at the right time. But see people as people. See people who need justice. When you go there, like, you know, the Bible says that the justice and righteousness are the foundations of his throne. So be that person. Be the person who seeks righteousness. Be the person who fights, you know, ferociously for justice for this person. If this is a person who's fighting for the property, they've been, you know, divorced, and the husband is you know, wants the whole property. Be angry at that, but also fight well so that the person can get, you know, the justice. And even if it doesn't work in your favor, because you know the profession that we are in.
Yeah.
It's not always going to work in your favor, but always be the person where even when somebody has lost, you are that, you know, ray of hope, and say, you know what, it will get better. I don't know how. I don't know. Sometimes, you know, you don't even have to know everything.
Yeah.
But, you know, you can be the person
The reassurance they need.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, reassure
Love that.
people and say, it will get better. I don't know, but you know what? It will get better. Yeah. So I think that's what I would change.
Sure, I love
Yeah.
that. And in the few minutes that we have left, is there something that you'd like to share with us that you believe this is a good platform to share? A question that I haven't asked you, but you thought, you know, I'd like to share this, or any words of wisdom to a young Black female law student?
So I spoke about my voice. You already asked me about this, but I think I would say it, especially to a young woman, black women or whatever. Like, like you are young, you are thirsty for whatever you're thirsty for. Like God puts dreams in our hearts, and I just want people to believe in the power of their voices. Never silence yourself because you feel like maybe I'm too small to come here. I mean, when I stepped here in the podcast, I was like, oh my goodness, like Tebello looks so pretty. Oh my goodness.
Thank you.
But then as I sat on this chair, like people don't know, but the Holy Spirit said, but you deserve to be here.
I
and
love
you
that. You
are
absolutely
yes,
You do.
yes, and whatever that you're going to say is important. So I would say that, for anyone that is younger, like always believe in your voice. Whenever you are in a classroom, jurisprudence is boring, whatever.
It sure
or
is.
you're
It sure is. But you said we have to go through it again, so let's go through it.
But you're gonna find yourself in groups, study groups, and sometimes people are going to undermine what you say. Do not quit. Like just believe in your voice, and I think that's the main thing that I want to say. Believe in your voice and know who you are. Like you are valuable. Like we are like all. We're different, but then we are all worthy.
Your contribution matters.
It,
I
ma'am,
always
you always say that. Yeah.
Your contribution matters. I always
Yeah.
say we all a little piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Without you, that
Yeah.
piece,
Yeah.
that puzzle is incomplete.
Yes.
So we are all a piece of a puzzle.
Yeah, that's
whichever
beautiful.
space we find yourself in,
Yeah.
always remember that your contribution matters. So important.
I love that. Yeah. So basically that's it. I would just say like
Thank you.
believe in your voice and know that you're worthy. Even if you fail a module and whatever, it's not part of your identity. You just failed a module that is going to form part what you do. And it's an honor and privilege to do what we get to do. But it does not form our identity. You are still worthy without a module being passed. You are still worthy without, you passing your articles or making it through. But you got to keep on trying.
Yeah,
Because
press on.
Yeah, press on and like because you add something. So that is what I would say.
Thank you so much, Tebello. It's been such a pleasure having you on
Yes, I hope you
our
have
show
me back.
today. You know what?
I will be on time this
You know
time.
what? You know what? Don't worry. Season 10.
Yes.
Season 10.
Come on.
I do like having Where Are They Now, especially the ones who joined the first year of the podcast. It's been 5 years since then. So I had a Where Are They Now session with them. So you'll be back on year 10. I
Girl,
promise you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. You will be
and
back.
Thank you so much. You do so much for the ladies, women. I'm sure, thank you so much. Thank you for contributing. Thank you for being passionate about what you do. And, I think you are the epitome of believing in your voice.
Thank
because
you.
we see you on so many different
appreciate
platforms
that.
telling your story. Even when you were telling me about your mom, I was like, oh yeah, I've heard that before. I was like,
love that. I love that.
Yeah, so thank you so much
thank
for
you.
for what you do.
No, it's been such a pleasure. I think the thing that I've enjoyed the most about having you today is your consistency, the thread of know who you are. I love that so much. And I think it's so important, especially for young women. Know who you are and, nothing will be able to shift you.
Amen.
Thank you so much, Tebello.
Thank you so much, Tebello.
Thank you so much to you at home for listening to today's episode. But please don't just end it listening. Don't forget to subscribe and follow me on all my social media pages, which I'll be sharing on the comment section below. Until next time, goodbye.